Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you what I think just might be the most 50-50 fight that I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, does anybody have yeah, I just know it, man. Benoit Saint Denis gonna mow down Paddy Pimblett and run him over. I just know that the fuck you talking about, lad. If Gaethje didn't poke me in the eyeball with a schooled Gaethje, I'd be the lightweight champion. Like, how does anyone know how this fight is going to play out? Because this is not only a very intriguing matchup, but I think that it is a big one going down in the lightweight division. And clearly the UFC thinks so, in my opinion, by making this the co-main event at UFC 329 International Fight Week on a Conor McGregor card. And this card is absolutely stacked, by the way. But I want to talk about the matchup in this video because I am absolutely stumped on this fight. I just keep staring at this thing like Patrick Star at the screen like, SpongeBob, connect the dots. SpongeBob. I feel like Patrick Star looking at this thing like, Squidward? Like, I just don't how does anyone know how this fight's going to play out? Like, these dudes to me on the feet you talk about awful striking defense, look no further than Benoit Saint Denis and Paddy Pimblett. You want to learn how to not defend yourself on the feet? Hey, man, these are two dudes that you might want to take a look at. Like, I'm playing around a little bit, but listen, I feel like stylistically these guys match up so good against each other to where I'm like, I could just see this going a number of ways. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it and really kind of this nice run that BSD has been on because that, win over Mauricio Rufy has aged very well. And Paddy's coming off of that loss to Justin Gaethje. But up until that point, Paddy Pimblett was looking pretty good, man. And considering what Gaethje was able to do to Ilia Topuria at the White House, Paddy Pimblett's out here saying, hey, Ilia, you got your ass beat more than me, lad. The fuck you talking about? Gaethje didn't skill me. Like, Paddy Pimblett's basically being like, yeah, I didn't get my ass whipped as much as you, Ilia Topuria. And to be fair, even though Ilia had Gaethje in more trouble than Paddy ever did, Paddy kind of has a little bit of a point. So we're going to talk about it all in this video, but this fight to me is one of the most 50-50 looking fights I've seen in my life. And I feel like out of all the fights we've seen in 2026, this is the one that I just like, it's just like wearing me out, man. Like, I'm like, how does this fight go? Because Benoit Saint Denis, to me, is the better wrestler here. He has solid jiu-jitsu. I feel like he has more power on the feet, but he's so open to being tagged on the feet. And Paddy Pimblett, while he doesn't have the best striking in the world, we've seen him make some good improvements. We've seen him landing on a guy like Justin Gaethje, to where I think if you're landing on Gaethje, you're most likely going to be landing on BSD. And what we know about Paddy is his bread and butter is what? It's his grappling. In particular, his jiu-jitsu, which, by the way, is incredibly high level. Just because he wasn't able to get the grappling going against Justin Gaethje does not mean that Paddy is not a high-level grappler. Now, obviously, the big weakness that we've seen in his game, it's the wrestling, right? Getting the fight to the floor. But if you are willing to play that game with Paddy, like I think Benoit might, right? He might move forward, try to take Paddy down. That is going to be playing right into Paddy's strengths as a grappler, which is the jiu-jitsu game. So let's talk a little bit more about this fight, man, because when you talk about Benoit Saint Denis, this is a guy that, hey, man, he's a marauder, man. Like, when you talk about the God of War, like, BSD is a savage. He's a BMF type of fighter. He's a finisher, and every time Benoit steps into the octagon, it's almost like a decision is off the table. It's either him or you. And from what we've seen in the UFC for the most part, it's usually the other guy. Right, so the thought of Benoit going out here and finishing Paddy Pimblett, I mean, that would be massive, considering the nice little win streak that Benoit is on, right? I mean, 6 wins by knockout, 11 by submission, 8 first-round finishes, 17-3 in his career. But I, in particular, want to talk about these past 3 fights, right? Beat Kyle Prepolek, which was, a dominant win. Struggled a little bit early, but he was expected to beat Kyle Prepolek, right? The win over Mauricio Rufy has aged like fine wine, man. Like, because Mauricio Rufy, seeing what he was able to do to Rafael Fiziev, what he was able to do against Chandler, which everyone on planet Earth saw coming. Mauricio Rufy is one of the most dangerous, sharp-shooting strikers in all of the UFC, right? Kind of fights like a prime McGregor, and that win is, I mean, that's an incredible win. And not only did BSD win that fight, but he dominated that fight. He was landing good kicks to the body, right? Throwing up head kicks as well. Started to take down Rufy and kind of break him down on the deck, and then was able to find a submission. And I feel like, in a way, he had Rufy so frozen on the feet because Mauricio was so worried about the grappling that he didn't open up the same way. He was having a very hard time getting his game going. He's rather low output, and Benoit took full advantage of that. And ever since Benoit got knocked out by Poirier, got butchered on the ground by Moicano, this has been a different guy, man. It's just been a different guy. I know he's working with Nicholas Otto, I think is one of the best coaches in the game, who also coaches Nasruddin Imavov. BSD, to me, looks far more like tactically prepared for these fights, where before it was like he would just go out there and he's just like, I'm just going to go out there and we're going to have a war, right? When BSD's like, we're going to have a war, right? He's just going to go out there and move forward, and whatever happens, happens. So I feel like Nicholas Ott's like, we're not going to do that. We're going to kind of, here's the map. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go in here. This is the plan. This is how we're going to approach this guy. That's what we saw against Mauricio Rufy. That's what we saw against Beneil Dariush, a guy that at this point in his career, I mean, and Dariush gets knocked out, right? He's part of the Chinny Chin Chin Club that is actually led and pioneered by Dariush. He's the club owner, man, right? And he's not letting a lot of people in these days, right? You know, actually, he did let in Matt Schnell recently, right? So Matt Schnell is now an honorary member of the Chinny Chin Chin Club. We also got Dominic Reyes in there, Johnny Walker, but Dariush is the leader of that club, man. And Benoit knew, listen, I just got to land one big shot on this guy and I'm putting him away, which is exactly what he did. And I feel like a lot of us saw that coming, right? Saint Denis power moving forward, right? And then goes out there and, battled a lot of adversity against Dan Hooker, right? And again, Arman was able to take down Dan, beat him up on the ground, ultimately get him out of there, made it look relatively easy, but struggled a little bit in moments, right? And even though BSD did get a second round finish, it was not nearly as easy as what Arman Sarukian was able to do, right? Took some nasty shots to the body, those front kicks, the range of Dan Hooker was giving him some problems, which I think is going to be a factor in the Pimblett fight, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, he was able to get Dan down and beat him up with some nasty ground and pound, man. And that's the thing. If Paddy Pimblett's going to want to play that jiu-jitsu game, right, be on bottom and, try to look for sweeps and throw up attacks off of his back, being underneath of Benoit is a disaster waiting to happen because he's got nasty ground and pound. He's got excellent top pressure and control. And from what we've seen from Benoit, he goes in a lot more strategic with a lot more of a plan, at least in my opinion. When I watched Benoit first in the UFC, first kind of burst onto the scene, and I thought Poirier would knock him out and kind of expose the bad striking defense, in particular when it comes to the boxing of Benoit. But we have seen him kind of, tighten some things up a little bit defensively. But he's still very hittable on the feet. Doesn't move his head very well, and I think that that's what makes this very interesting coming into this fight with Paddy Pimblett. There's no denying, Benoit Saint Denis, man, I think he's going to come out like a bat out of hell, get in the face of Paddy Pimblett, start throwing those kicks to the body, look to level change, and put Paddy on his back, thinking that if Paddy plays this jiu-jitsu game and he's underneath of me and I don't allow him to sweep me, I don't get caught in an armbar or a triangle or something that Paddy is trying to cook up from the bottom, not only will Benoit be winning minutes, but I absolutely could see him slicing open Paddy and doing some serious damage when it comes to the ground and pound. So stylistically, man, I think Benoit has a really, really good shot to go in here and just implement his game, right? I think he's got more power than Paddy. I think he's the better wrestler. And as much as I think Paddy has better jiu-jitsu, if you're the better overall MMA grappling package like I think BSD is, I think he can beat Paddy in that area, and I think on the feet he does have more power. But here's the issue for Benoit. Paddy Pimblett's one of these guys, right? He's 23-4, 7 wins by KO, 10 wins by submission. But, I mean, really throughout Paddy's career, right, it was the fight with Jared Gordon to where it was like, man, how in the world did they give that decision to Paddy Pimblett, which I feel like is a reason that Jared Gordon has been kind of overrated over the past couple years. But, I mean, Paddy Pimblett's just been going out there doing what he's supposed to do, right? And for a while, it was like, almost like, is Paddy an industry plant, right? They're throwing him in there. It's like, nah, I don't think he beat Jared Gordon, right? They give him, a washed-up Tony Ferguson, and he's kind of struggling there and then just runs through Bobby Green, which is very impressive considering how Bob Green has kind of had this resurgence in his career, made easy work of him. Right, and then absolutely dominated Michael Chandler. I know Chandler had some moments and, was able to take him down a few times, but Paddy Pimblett beat up Chandler, man. Sliced him up and was able to stop him in round 3. right? And when you looked at Charles Oliveira in the rematch versus Chandler, like, yeah, Charles was taking him down, controlling him, and putting on a grappling masterclass, but Chandler started to battle back late. Like, Paddy literally sliced and diced Michael Chandler, and that was back in April of 2025. So still when, yeah, Chandler's not necessarily the guy that he was in his prime, but still very good, right? And then most recently, this was the performance that at the time, we're like, man, like Paddy Pimblett going out there and getting worked by Justin Gaethje over the course of 25 minutes, like getting battered on the feet, almost, what looked like he was going to be KO'd a few times. And, to be fair, I mean, Paddy landed some good shots, right? The first time around watching that fight live, I'm like, man, Paddy got worked. And then when I watched the fight leading up to the Topuria Gaethje fight, I'm like, Paddy had a lot more success than what I remembered, especially, from range. Good front kicks up the middle, which is something that Dan Hooker was kind of, working consistently against BSD, tagging him to the midsection with those long rangy tools. Paddy's kind of got those string bean punches to where they're not exactly, have the most power on them, and they're not the most technical, but they still land. They absolutely still land. And I could see, if BSD, who's going to be that lower center of gravity guy who's moving forward, looking to explode, Paddy's got those very good knees up the middle to where I could absolutely see him catching Benoit on the way in, or knowing that Benoit is going to look to level change and shoot a takedown that heads on the outside hip, Paddy could absolutely look to lock in some sort of guillotine and trap BSD in his guard and try to find a way to get him out of there, anticipating that Benoit is going to look to level change. But I feel like this Gaethje fight is so interesting, right? Because one, it's very clear that Gaethje, working with Trevor Whitman, they craft up these very intelligent game plans, right? Against Paddy, not throwing a ton of kicks per se, not wanting to help Paddy get a takedown, right? Gaethje kind of brawling in that fight, which in hindsight, it's pretty clear is what they were doing. They just didn't respect Paddy's power or his striking. And they knew his chin is in the air on a platter, just waiting to be tagged. And I said coming into the fight, I'm like, if Paddy doesn't get this fight to the ground, Gaethje's going to bang him up bad on the feet, which is what happened. And I thought Paddy would have some sort of grappling success, and he had none. None at all. And it's like he didn't even really try to grapple. And that just kind of exposed, one, Gaethje's grappling and his takedown defense is actually next level. It's just the fact that he got rocked by Oliveira and submitted, right? And either way, I mean, Oliveira, one of the most elite grapplers of all time, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. And outside of that, like, no one else is really taking down Gaethje and having success. The only other guy at 55 that could do that, I mean, we saw Ilya do it a little bit, would be Arman. Right, but outside of that, I mean, Gaethje's a tough dude to deal with. And on the feet, like, I don't think anyone thought Paddy would beat Gaethje in the striking. It was just like, well, Paddy can get him down, and he's got good submission skills. He's a big guy for the weight class. Gaethje's a little bit older, but we're seeing Gaethje is still very much a very high-level fighter. And, this was kind of one of those wins where, yeah, we don't want to hand Paddy a participation trophy, but he put up a lot better of a fight than I feel like a lot of people that were picking Gaethje kind of assumed. And then seeing how Gaethje and Ilya played out, I feel like in a way it's kind of like, man, for a guy that it felt like Paddy was overrated for a while, then kind of now it feels like he could be a little bit underrated coming into this fight against Benoit Saint Denis. So how I see this fight matching up stylistically, right? And kind of what troubles me in terms of trying to make a pick is, I'll have my full card breakdown coming out rather soon for 329. I can't wait for that card. It's just one of those things of who's going to be able to implement their game better. Because if I'm Paddy Pimblett, I'm sitting back watching, right? These guys match each other in the range. They're about the same height. They have a very similar reach. It's one of those things where it's not like Paddy's necessarily Dan Hooker-esque, right? Dan Hooker, I know that we've seen some gaps with his takedown defense, and, he tries to go for these submissions and then ends up on his back and in these bad positions to where we see Dan, have good moments on the feet, but then he has these lapses in judgment when it comes to the fight IQ to where Paddy does come in pretty prepared. Even though I thought he would look to grapple more against Gaethje, we just saw that his wrestling is not that good. But the thing about it is in this fight, I think Benoit is going to look to grapple with Paddy. And if he does, that's going to give Paddy those entanglements that he's looking for. And if you want to play that game with Paddy Pimblett, he has excellent jiu-jitsu on the mat. Very good control. He can set traps. He can walk you into so many different things. But that's why I wonder, like, is Benoit going to grapple? Because if he does, I think if he could keep Paddy on his back, not only win minutes, but slice him up a ground and pound, like what we saw in the Hooker fight. But I think Paddy's going to be taking notes, man. Trying to sit on the outside with that kind of awkward, flimsy style of striking. 1-2s down the pipe. Throwing that big Looney Tunes uppercut with the knee, knowing that Benoit might be looking to level change. Those front kicks to the midsection. Because if I'm Paddy, I'm like, go ahead and take me down. Go ahead and take me down because I have the confidence in my jiu-jitsu skills, right? And that's kind of how Paddy gets the fight to the ground in hindsight, looking back on a lot of his fights. It's not like his wrestling is super high level. at least against the top competition in this weight class. So on the feet, to me, I give the power advantage to Benoit. In terms of the technique, I do think Benoit is a little bit cleaner, but man, defensively, these guys are so vulnerable, which makes this interesting. This is such a, like, is it just me or is this like a coin flip fight? Where I feel like if these guys fought 10 out of 10 times, it probably goes 50-50 or someone wins, 6 of them, wins 6-4. That's how I look at this fight. So come fight night, it's going to come down to who can implement their game plan better. Obviously, that's just kind of fighting in general, but this is one of those fights, man, where it's like, what tells do we have? Both guys are bad defensively on the feet. And I know you could say, well, wait a minute. Benoit looked pretty good defensively on the feet against Rufy. He was ripping good kicks to the body. Paddy's going to be, in that orthodox stance to where the kicks to the body are going to be available for both guys in that open stance battle, which that's when Benoit does some of his best work. Right against orthodox guys, he can rip that kick to the body, eventually set up a head kick. If you get into the clinch, we saw what he was able to do to Dariush. But the thing about Paddy, you can say what you want. Scousers don't get knocked out, lad. He's got a hell of a chin, man. A hell of a chin, and so does BSD. BSD can absolutely take a beating. But we saw Moicano put BSD on his back, right? BSD is one of these guys when he's in full control of the fight and he's the one pushing the pace, moving forward like the bulldozer that he is, things are going well and according to plan. But if you can put BSD on his back and Paddy can get some ground and pound going, he can push Benoit's back up along the fence and really dictate the pace of this fight and keep him on the outside with long, straight shots. I absolutely see a world to where Paddy Pimblett can win this fight. So for me, if Paddy wins, it would be finding some sort of submission in a grappling entanglement as BSD maybe starts to slow down as the fight plays out, because we have seen that Benoit does have good cardio and he's a dog. He's not going to give up on himself. He's going to keep moving forward. Both of these dudes are dogs and very durable. But I feel like the guy that we've seen that if you batter him to the midsection, you can slow him down and you can really kind of deteriorate that output that he brings to the table, that guy would be BSD. So I think Paddy's going to come in with a game plan, rip to the body of Saint Denis, try to wear him down, and then if he catches a kick, so what? I end up on my back. We can get into some of these grappling entanglements, which I think Paddy can be very dangerous in. I could see Paddy outscoring him and winning a decision, but I could also see Benoit landing some big shots on the feet, stinging up Paddy, putting him on his back, and finding some sort of ground and pound stoppage, which would be absolutely crazy considering how dangerous Gaethje is and the damage that Gaethje's known for, taking. I mean, Gaethje's a much better striker than both of these guys. Like that's just the reality. You got kind of the chaos of Benoit versus the awkward Looney Tunes string bean shots of Paddy Pimblett. I think stylistically this fight is very, very intriguing. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think, man. Who do you think wins this fight? You think Benoit gets it done? Because what I think's impressive about Benoit is his fights pretty much are all via stoppage, right? Whether he wins or loses, it's either him or you. And I feel like he's going to bring that attitude. Co-main event, International Fight Week. Right, this is a big fight because Paddy's a big name, and the time is now for Paddy Pimblett, right? He's not like a spring chicken in the game. I know it feels like he just got here, but he's been around for a while. The UFC was giving him the slow build. They threw him in there against Gaethje, and I feel like, the UFC was like, man, this is Gaethje's a little bit on the decline, right? That's kind of how I think that they were looking at it, saying, look, Gaethje's saying he'll retire. We got to give him a title fight. Then it was like, well, we've seen Gaethje get submitted before. Maybe Paddy can do it. And then if Paddy can do it, we could do him versus Ilya. And once again, Gaethje spoiled the plans. This is a big bounce back opportunity for Paddy against Benoit, because I think the winner of this, not only do I think that they'll get a big fight, but if BSD wins, I think that he's on a very short list to fight for the title. And if Paddy can go out here, I think he's got to get another big win before, he could fight for the title. But the winner of this, I could very much see being Ilia Toporia's next opponent. How crazy would that be? And what if Rufy wants some get back on Saint Denis? They want to run that one back because I think Rufy's made some good improvements. And I think with a better game plan and working with Volkanovski, he might be able to find a way to get to Saint Denis in their fight. So this, to me, is one of those fights where styles really make fights, man. Styles really make fights, because you could say, well, look what Saint Denis did to a guy like Rufy, right? So what's Paddy going to have for him? But again, Paddy has the jiu-jitsu to be able to cause Saint Denis problems on the deck. And just because Saint Denis was able to easily starch Dariush, yeah, it's impressive, but Dariush has got no chin at this point, man. I know that, he's got the gray hair, looks like he's 50, but he doesn't have a chin. Paddy absolutely has a chin. He could take a heck of a shot, and he is also a big 155er that I think can match the physicality of Benoit and not allow BSD to just bully him around. I could see this fight going either way, And as we get closer to fight week, I will have my prediction out. But I've been back and forth on it, man. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this fight. Let me know who you are leaning towards in this matchup down in the comments. And if you are new, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time.